Welcome back to another episode of the Lads Talking Footy podcast, episode 69, mate. We've made it to the magical number. A little bit more of a casual one today. As always, Jordan Tana, me, Sam, bringing it to you live in person again, mate. How's it going?
Yeah, good, bro. It's good to see you live, bro. I always like these shows when we're doing it here and in person. We can bounce off each other a little better. So, yeah.
Nice. We'll get into it. So we've got All Black chat, NRL finals, early preview, and then some NFL chat to end us off, mate. So the structure to it's going to be a little bit shorter, a little bit different. This is being recorded on a Sunday, so we're trying to get ahead of the scheduling and that. But something that has come off just the other night was the All Blacks defeating Argentina, mate, 42-10, win. The Eden Park record intact. That's now 50 in a row. They've brought up the big 5-0. Super impressive performance, mate. Tale of two games in a way.
Yeah, man. It actually was. Like, you see the way that the attitudes from the teams changed from one game to the other. The All Blacks actually showed up really well in this game, and they came out hot from the get-go. You could tell by the defensive intensity, the way they were carrying the ball, especially Adi Savia, bro. He was a fucking beast the whole game, man. Like, I was super impressed by his performance, but just the whole forward pack in general were really good. The front rows were cleaning out the rucks really well. We were getting good quick service, especially with the conditions. There was a little bit of sloppiness early, but there was a lot of things that we did to adjust the result from the last game to this game. And it was a fucking sensational performance. And you have to shout out the All Blacks and the coaching staff for making those adjustments. Like, I don't know if they did it last week, but definitely in this game, they were sending one flyer to put put pressure on the first ball carrier in the pod for the All Blacks. And they were just doing some simple moves like little tip balls or maybe hitting that ice out the back. And we were getting a lot of purchase off those sort of things with half breaks. And especially in that first half, Argentina couldn't even handle it at all. So, man, shout out the All Blacks as well. And then especially when they did try to shift it in that first half, especially once we had them stretched, it was just simple but dynamic plays, like little backdoors, just like little short balls, chip kicks, just like things. They're not reinventing the wheel or maybe showing that innovation that we've been calling for, but it's the appropriate adjustments that got us over the line in this result. So super impressed with the All Blacks, man. Huge turnaround.
It's such a cliche term. The rugby is a physical sport. So whoever wins the contact is going to win the game. And I was sitting there before the game and I was debating it with my old man. He was like, Argentina, I think they were at $5 or something. And he was like, oh, I'm keen to get on. I said, mate, you've got there a week too late. That's what we're worried about with England, a big physical pack coming up against us. And that's what we said last week with that first clash between us and Argentina. That's where they're going to target us. Yeah. They're going to be physical. They're big boys, and that's their strength, and they used it well. But we just won the confrontation throughout, and we won the gain line, and then we dominated the ruck, and that allowed us to play fast off it. I was so impressed with our tight five throughout. I thought the difference was going to be our loose forwards, and they were fantastic with carrying the ball. But our tight five, they stepped up so much. The locking department were fantastic. Sam Derry, man, what a story as well. He was kind of completely out of this All Black squad before then coming in as a late inclusion. And I think he's got an All Black spot there. He's making a case.
Great for the Blues.
Exactly. Asafo Amor was so powerful as well. And I agree with you 100%. Adi Savia on a whole nother level. Yeah. The cry of the animal as well. It was, I can't remember when it was, but when he got the legs pumping and he just screamed. I was like, man.
I heard that in the replay because they showed the little clip of his run. And I didn't know if I heard it right. I was like, was that him screaming as he was taken into contact? So I'm glad you heard it too, because that is like pure animal. That's a man who just wants to make as much meters as possible.
Yeah, and it was good. And the one thing as well for me watching the game is I love Damien McKenzie as a player, but I've always been a little bit skeptical on him playing in that 5'8" role in the international level, because he's a player that can just break a game open at any point, and his strength is his running game. But I honestly think that he, over the last couple of games, and especially in that one last night, he's really starting to form into a proper, not a general, because the flair is there and you don't want that to go, but he's starting to look quite comfortable.
Finding the balance, tapered it back a little bit.
I'm not sure if having Richie Mwanga with him in camp continuously and obviously helping guide him along a little bit. I don't know if that's helping, but I've been so impressed. And that combination last night between him and Perinara was fantastic.
Yeah.
Perinara had some amazing touches out on that right-hand edge, I think it was, where
That
it was a 4-on-4 or a 4-on-3, and Perinara brought in the 2 tackles and then hit him with the offload around the back. It's great to see, man, because he was a little bit flat last week and there was a few people riding him, but he'd been out with injury as well. And he is getting a little bit longer in the tooth too, but it's so good to see, man. And I don't know, I am excited to see where this All Blacks team does sort of go to. And we keep harping on about what their identity is going to be, but Razor is ultimately just doing it with the cattle he's got at the moment. But again, it's like you see... Obviously, what Argentina did to us last week, and we adjusted. And I hope that we see this in the next 2 games up against South Africa as well, because they are going to be big tests, massive tests for us, because you talk about Argentina being physical, South Africa, it's a whole nother level. So I'm not too fussed on the results we might see from them, but I do want to see them continue that same intensity because that's what they should be playing with. And I just want to see the adjustments continue.
Yeah, and South Africa is going to be a super hard test. Like, it's a pretty no shit statement, but the way they've looked against Australia as well, like they've been absolute at their beastly best in terms of physicality, but also they've been looking pretty slick on attack as well. Like, their back line is ticking just as well as their forward pack at the moment. So it's going to be super hard over there. I don't know who did the draw, but 2 games away in South Africa, it's a pretty nightmare matchup. But if we carry this intensity and we play with the attacking brilliance that we showed, and especially in that first half in this game, we can put them under a lot of pressure, because even though these other teams like South Africa and Ireland and France maybe look more complete and better teams all around, our attacking brilliance, if we can get the forward pack right and getting our physicality right, our attacking brilliance, I still think is better than anyone on earth. We still have the most talented back players on earth. So I really hope we show up in South Africa, and to go 2-0 against them, imagine that. Like, that would be crazy.
It's going to be interesting to see where they target us as well, because they are going to scheme for it as well. And I do see our, obviously, tight 5. I said earlier they really stepped up in this game, but I do think that is sort of our weaker point. So it's going to be interesting to see where they attack. I think our back line, Geordie has been targeted before in the midfield there, but he looks so solid there at the moment as well. Leonard Brown has been fantastic on defense too. So it's going to be interesting to see where South Africa target us, if they're going to go for the old bombs and that again as well, or if they are going to play just a real physical brand of footy. But I'm looking forward to it, man. And then we're going to move into the Bledisloe, obviously, after that. We're going to come to you with a bit of an NRL finals preview, an early preview, because games are still rolling at the moment. But it's looking like our top 4 it's pretty locked in. It's going to be the Storm and Penrith. They've locked themselves in there at the top there. The Roosters, they look pretty comfy there as well. And then it's going to be either the Sharks, Manly, or the Dogs that are all in the fight for that 4th spot. The Sharks are obviously playing the Knights later on today, and we've seen convincing wins from Manly and the Dogs as well. Out of that potential top 4, though, do you see any pretenders on that list, or do you think they're all genuine teams that can make a real run at it?
So, in terms of pretenders, there is one glaring one for me, and that's just the inconsistency that I'm seeing out of them at the moment. They still defend at a high level, so I wouldn't be surprised if they are actually a problem come playoff times. But I'm talking about the Cronulla Sharks, because it's real up and down from week to week. Like, they'll blow teams out with great defense and just hard footy through the middle, but they do have a lot of question marks around those half positions, and their ability to score points sometimes is a little bit dusty. So at the moment, I'm thinking out of that lot, they are looking like the most pretenders. And then there is also, I do harbor a little bit of nervousness towards Manly as well, because whenever it comes final times, they do seem to like crumble in the last couple of years. They are prone to making mistakes and giving away a lot of penalties, which kind of stems 20 to 25 minutes of beautiful footy that we'll see from them, and then they'll just let teams back in the game. So Manly I do have question marks as well, but Manly and Roosters, I kind of have them in the same bracket, because on their day, they can upset anyone, including that top 2 who I'd say are the most reliable in the Storm and Panthers. But it's because they're not as reliable, I'm not going to bank on both of them to go deep into a finals run. I'm not going to say they can go back-to-back beating the Storm and Panthers. They could beat one, but I doubt they could beat them back to back.
For me, the Dogs are a little bit of a
Dogs of
concern
war.
in a way. I'm a little bit worried. They're fantastic at the moment, but we all know that they have a small pack. So come finals time, when you're up against the likes of Manly, or you're up against the likes of the Roosters or the Penrith Panthers, where it's going to be a grind in the middle and you're potentially not going to get away with your early shifts. Manly play a brand of football where they go for those early shifts early on as well, but they've got that pack through the middle, so they can beat you up in the middle as well, and they can go wide. So that's the only thing that sort of worries me a little bit with the Bulldogs. The defence is there for them as well, and they've got some attacking flair. Burton's boot can get them out of any kind of trouble that they're in as well. But it's just when it comes down to that nitty-gritty, I'm not sure how they'll go in the middle there. For me, the Sharks are the biggest concern. You've obviously got Nico Hines that's going to come back from injury. Who the hell is going to be the 5'8"? Are they going to stick with Trindle? In my opinion, I think they should stay with Anderson. And then, like you said, Manly, I love them. And on any day, they can beat whoever in this competition. But it is on any day, and any day they can just crumble as well. Yeah. So they worry me a little bit in there. It's going to be interesting to see how they go, because the Dogs, or who ends up in that fourth spot as well, because the Dogs take on the Warriors this coming weekend. Mount Smart is going to be like something you've never seen before. Sean Johnson's last game there. The Dogs are coming in, and we've got a good following of Bulldogs fans here in New Zealand as well. When you go to Warriors games against the Doggies, you always see them out in force too. And they've got something to go and watch now as well. So I'm interested to see how that goes, because for me, I think the Dogs might lose that one. And then the Sharks take on Manly in round 27 as well. So it's going to be very interesting to see who ends up taking that last spot, because I have my concerns with the Sharks depending on today's result. Because if they drop out, I think they're done for. Yep. And then it's going to be a race between Manly and the Dogs. And the Dogs do have them on points differential.
Well, I've actually done a little NRL ladder predictor on the NRL.com website. And my top four is looking like this. It's looking Storm 1, Panthers 2, Rooster 3. And then the Bulldogs do climb to 4, with the Seagulls also climbing to 5. Yeah, maybe I did it biasly to help you multi. But the Seagulls climb above the Sharks as well, with the Sharks ending up in 6. So that obviously kind of gives you an indication of where I think the Sharks are actually at. Whereas the Bulldogs, I agree, man. They are definitely a contender. I'm not going to say they're a genuine contender, because there is still those question marks that you outlined. But I think defense can carry you a long way, and they can get through the first couple of rounds and maybe even get into that preliminary final situation, because they are a really good team, and they keep impressing me from week to week. Last night, they were super impressive again against the Dolphins. But this isn't really like a hot take, and it's a weird take as well, because they're sitting at the top of the table, and they're sitting comfortably at the top of the table. But I still think Melbourne are a sleeping giant. Like, I think there's still more to show. They keep winning these games. They're winning these games close against top competition, but there's still like something not quite there on the attack that I can see glimpses of potential with, that can just explode. And I think if they absolutely put it together in these next couple of weeks leading into the finals, and I see a 40, 50 point performance on someone pretty good, I'm going to lock them in as title favourites to win this competition, because they are still a sleeping giant to me.
Wishart, for me, has been the difference maker.
Huge.
They've figured it out finally. They've figured out how to use him through the middle there. Nelson, if he can continue to carry that form into the finals, I agree with you 100%. And they've been there, and they've done that. And they've got guys that can break a game apart. Pappenhausen can break a game apart. Harry Grant might not be having his best season this year, but he can cut you up through the middle. And then you know Munster is just going to pull something out of the hat at some point. And then they've arguably got the Dally M current front runner and Dally M halfback of the year as well, in Jerome Hughes, having his best season today.
And the thing is, like, we say all these names and like, oh, Munster when he gets back, Pappenhausen when he gets back, they're all healthy. They're all back. All these star players are in the rotation at the moment. And we do need to see them click to their full potential, but I see a lot of potential. And man, I'm really worried the Storm are going to take it out again.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to some finals games over there in Melbourne as well. Now, we've talked about the top 4. We're going to go into rounding out a potential top 8 as well. So we're looking at the Cows, the Dolphins, Dragons, Knights, and the Raiders, all starting to fight for those last 2 spots. Now, the Dolphins obviously dropped the game last night. The Cowboys, they ended up winning and boosting their points differential as well.
Yeah.
So it is sort of looking like the Cowboys are going to ultimately secure that 7 spot. But then you've got the Dragons, the Knights, and the Raiders all coming for that last spot. The Dragons, they take on the Titans today. I mean, they've been as inconsistent as it gets since round 14 with the win-loss ratio. The Knights are sort of sticking around, but I mean, they've got themselves somewhat of a spine at the moment, but that seems to change as the Dragons' win-loss record changes each week as well. And then the Raiders, I mean, Fogarty back for them has been huge, but they're sort of sticking around there. Do you think who's gonna take in that last spot? Are we gonna see the Dolphins make a finals run, or are the Dragons actually gonna sneak in and get this?
Well, according to my ladder predictor, I do have the Dolphins hanging on to that last spot, and there is some reasons to make for the Knights and the Dragons and stuff like that, especially the Knights. The Knights have a very easy run home. I've said on the show before that I'm not convinced with the quality of their team and how good they actually are, but they're still just above average enough to beat these lower teams that they've got coming up in the coming weeks. So I do think they could push for a spot. I've actually got the Broncos to make a late surge into 9th.
Yeah.
Which I just think they're going to be hungry, and after last week's performance, they're going to be inspired to make a run and beat some teams. But
the only thing I have written off with that is the Reece Walsh injury for me, which is going to hinder them moving forward.
No, that definitely will, because he is almost the focal point of that. He is the focal point of that offense. So without his threat out the back, you can probably write them off. But I think the Dolphins just have enough to hang on. Like, they did get shown their level last night by the Bulldogs, and they did get outclassed, but I think that's more of a promotion to how good the Bulldogs actually are. Like, the Bulldogs are a quality team, great defensively and figuring things out on attack. The Dolphins are still a pretty good team. They do well on attack. It's just the defense they need to sort out, and I don't know whether they are going to sort out, but I still think they run up enough points and have enough on attack with weapons like Hammer. Katoa has been kicking well. Avarillo has been playing all right there in the center. Bostock. So I think they have enough to like beat teams with their attack in certain games in like 34 to 28 shootouts.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to help their points difference and hopefully get them over the line to the top 8.
It'll be interesting to see. Yeah, I can't wait to see who ends up sneaking into that last spot. I'd love to see like a wild card or something like that moving forward, because we always have this hunt for that last spot, and there's like 2 to 3 teams, but right now there's a stack of teams coming for it. So it'd be good to see as they expand sort of a potential, something new developed into there. Come round one of the finals though, mate, if you're in that top echelon, what's one team in that bottom one that you're a little bit worried about? For me, it's the Cowboys.
Yeah.
The attack is there, the flair is there. They've got guys that are quite experienced. They've pulled trigger on Townsend and brought Clifford in there. I think that's potentially what they're going to run with moving forward. I thought maybe next year they'd look at a Tommy Dearden shifting into 7 for them, but they've pulled trigger early, and I feel like they're comfortable with just living and dying by the sword with the team that they've got now to go for it. But Cowboys, man, the attacking flair is written all across the board there.
Yeah, I couldn't disagree with you, man. That is the most scary team out of all of them, just because of that attacking flair. I mean, they still have their concerns on defense, but from what I saw in last night's games, like their ability to explode and just play slick attack with Scotty Drinkwater entering the line and putting all sorts of pressure under the defense, they are a real legit attacking threat of a team, and their attack can almost become a defense because they're just putting you down the field by breaking out of their own half and just winning the territory battle just through their expansive play. And then that's how you see these games where they're winning games 42-4 and stuff like that. But you also see it on the other hand where they get into a bit of a dogfight for a team with a team that wants it, like the Broncos, and then they get dicked themselves. So they are the biggest X factor. I will 100% agree.
One smoking on that list, and we talk about teams, but you've got to look at coaches. And if the Dolphins can sneak into that top 8, and you're coming up against a Wayne Bennett coach team, a guy that's been there, done that, knows how to get the best out of his players, and you've got a lot of guys in that team that are kind of on their last ride in that forward pack as well, and the last ride with Wayne at the club. I would be quite worried if I'm coming up against the Dolphins in round 1 too.
Yeah, especially if you're like a team like the Sharks or the Seagulls, where are a little bit inconsistent.
Yeah.
They could definitely work out a game plan to put themselves over the line.
I can't wait for it, mate.
Yeah.
It's always a long slug of a season. You get through State of Origin and it's that ride home. And we see the wave of who's going to make the top 8 and who's not. Like come finals time, it's going to be interesting to see who goes to the next level.
The Warriors find themselves in that all too familiar position where they're doing absolute extreme Einstein level math to try and get us in. I don't think it's possible anymore, is it?
Nah, I think it's written off now after Manly.
Okay. Well,
it was the equations were coming out last week on if this team, if the top 8 loses and we win, like maybe, but
yeah. I even heard the commentators in the middle of the Manly game, like, laying it out like the Warriors would have to win out and the Broncos would have to lose 3 of the next 4 and the Dragons would have to do the same. Like
they bring out the cheat sheet from like round 24 every year. They're just going to work out the X's and O's and it's I hope we can start to right the wrongs a little bit next season, but I do think that it's going to be a build for the future now.
Well, I honestly could see us looking pretty good down the stretch with all that's on the line narratively with Johnson bowing out at the end of the season and then wanting to play for him. And then it just looked a little slicker with Metcalf coming into the lineup last 2 nights ago against the Seagulls. So,
which we've been saying that that's what they've missed. Chanel's been great out there, but Luke just brings like that X factor out there too.
Just he's a little more quicker under feet, and he's also like just plays with a bit of depth. Like when Johnson is linking with Tavita Harris is a little bit flat, and it's kind of putting Tavita Harris in a position where he has to make a really quick playmaking decision, and he doesn't quite have those tools to do that effectively.
And it puts pressure on the centres outside him as well, because then it becomes a quick tip on, which is sort of not really our skill in the likes of Pompey and that, whereas
100%.
Metcalf will give that early shot.
Yeah, he'll be deep, and then he gives himself a good run up to use his speed, kind of like a Reece Walsh, where he can see what the defender's doing, see what kind of reads they're going to make, and then make his decision. So it's going to look a lot better down the stretch, and I hope we, win a few games and give us some faith for next year.
Yeah, exactly. Keep the faith.
Yeah, for sure.
It's next year's our year.
Yep.
The slogan comes back out. All right, mate. Welcome to the Gridiron. So we had talked about potentially taking a little bit of a break after the NRL season, but we want to keep rolling.
Yeah.
So we're going to keep bringing you, might not be consistent every week, but we're going to keep bringing you something around the NFL. So it is set to return to our TV shortly. They do such a good job of building this up. I think a lot of other codes can sort of, I guess, keep it on watch on how they do it, because they dropped the new receiver on Netflix, obviously before the preseason. So we sort of started to get hungry as we moved into that. And then all the Hard Knocks documentaries that they have on as well throughout preseason and the camps. They do such a good job. Now, is there a player that has caught your eye for the upcoming season?
Ooh, caught my eye. So there is one player that's caught my eye, and that's Caleb Williams. I think he's been outstanding. But the most exciting player for me is Jordan Love.
Yeah.
I really want to see what he does for the Packers, because he had a real breakout year last year. Obviously, his first year coming out from under Aaron Rodgers and like getting his first opportunity to thrive. And he got off to a bit of a slow start, but then when you look at his numbers by the end of the year, 4,159 yards on 64.2 completion, 32 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, 96.1 passer rating, and 4 rushing touchdowns. And he came on really strong at the back end of the season. Like that's where the most potential you saw out of him came from, because he only went under his season averages in completion rate twice over the last 8 games, and then only went under 100 passer rating once in the last 8 games, going 6-2 down that stretch as well. So he had the Packers looking really good, and then obviously they came up against the Cowboys in that famous first round playoff game, absolutely blew them out of the water and looked amazing in that game as well. 272 yards and 3 touchdowns on 76.2 completion rate with 0 interceptions and a near perfect 99.3 QBR in their playoff destruction, man. So he is looking super talented. Obviously, they've invested the bag into him because they gave him $220 million contract for 4 years. So
it's nice.
He's sitting pretty good there with his money, but it's really now is the season where we see a full season out of him with the full commitment of a franchise, with some good weapons, with Christian Watson getting healthier, Josh Jacobs to come in to replace Aaron Jones. This is a real chance for him to thrive, and the Packers have got a lot of expectations this year, so it's not all just Jordan Love, you're coming out of nowhere. You're the man. Like
Yeah.
we finally, the highlights are not going to be super positive on him. He's got a lot of pressure on him now, and I really want to see what he does and what he can do to take the Packers maybe that next step in the playoffs, because they got pretty close to the eventual Super Bowl losers and the 49ers. So they're a really good team, and I want to see what he does, man. $220 million, bro. Prove your worth.
He did that last year with pretty much fuck all on that offense, especially to begin the season as well. And they've really loaded up. They've got a new offensive coordinator, I believe, out there for them as well. And he's in year 2. And we always see this. We always see the breakout stars. It's not just in this code. You see it all throughout. Yeah. He's got a name on him now. Teams are going to be scheming for him as well. So I want to see what you can do in year 2 of your run as such, because he was outstanding last year. Fairy tale run home in the playoffs as well for the Packers. Can you do it again? You mentioned Caleb Williams before, mate. He's caught my eye. Yeah. The Bears, they've been poos for a long time now. And my player to watch last year was Justin Fields from the Bears. So I'm going straight back to the Bears this year. They won their won their division in the 2018-19 season, but they have loaded up this year. They've got the running backs, they've got the receivers. They've gone and put all of those pieces around him, and then they went to draft night and they got their guy. We saw what CJ Stroud did in his rookie season last year out in Texas. People have put a lot of expectation on Caleb Williams having a similar season, and I'm here to put those same expectations out there on him as well. I don't like it when guys come in and
rookies.
Yeah, and you expect everything out of them, but he's got weapons there, and he's got proven weapons as well, and he's a dog. I mean, he is out in Chicago. Chicago is a windy city. I would hate to be a quarterback, having to go out there and throw the ball, put a dome on top of that thing, help the boys out. But I am putting those expectations on him because I like what I see. When you see him, like, obviously you see it on TV, but players have aura about them, and he's like, he comes in and he has that aura. Like Trevor Lawrence was supposed to be the star when he came in, but he didn't have like aura. Yeah. Caleb Williams looks like a dog, and he looks like he's gonna just go out. He looks comfortable. He's got the cannon. He's got everything about it. Everything that I've seen from his arm so far looks fantastic. He's not going to put up the numbers like CJ Stroud did in terms of like the interception numbers and all of that. But I just want to see him just go for it. And you talked about the Packers, mate. Put notice on the NFC North at the moment, because it is building between them, Detroit, the Packers, and the Vikings, who have Justin Jefferson out there as well. It's a hell of a division.
Dogfight. Yeah, that division's tough, man.
So what we talked about players. What team are you excited about?
Well, Caleb, I'm glad you brought up Caleb Williams, because that perfectly segues me into that team, and I'm glad you mentioned that division as well, because I'm going with the Chicago Bears, man, because you highlighted it perfectly. They've completely loaded up, man. Like their wide receiver room is looking stacked now with DJ Moore, Keenan Allen they've got in the offseason. They've got Rome Odunze, I believe, is coming as a rookie. And then they've got like serviceable players on that offense as well. And Cole Kmet at tight end, and then their running back, who is DeAndre Swift. Yeah. And he's more than serviceable sometimes. Like he's showing glimpses of being like a pretty good player. And then that goes with their defense as well, which has been super strong with Montez Sweat leading the charge for them as well. So they've got a really good team behind them. And the Chicago Bears have traditionally been a team that's kind of been pretty average. Like I think you highlighted, when was it, 2019, their last division win? 2018-19. They haven't won a Super Bowl in 38 years. They haven't been to a Super Bowl in 17 years. And in that time since they last went to the Super Bowl, they've only won one playoff game. So they're like the epitome of a very average team. And then the biggest X factor that you mentioned before is the quarterback play, but because since I've known them, and then apparently throughout their history, they've never really had a good quarterback. Like Jay Cutler is a bit of a reach to a great quarterback, but now they've got this complete X factor in Caleb Williams, who I know I'm putting expectations on him as well, but from what I've seen in the preseason and then what I've seen in his USC highlights and just the way he moves and the way he can throw off the back leg and do all these crazy passes in such accuracy, he is looking like an absolute killer. Like he is fully fruity and a bit strange off the field, but on the field, he's an absolute dog, and he's showing it every time in this preseason so far. So that's a huge X factor, and I think it's something that can give the third biggest city in America, Chicago, a lot of excitement because their sports is a little bit, I don't know what the Cubs are doing, but the Bulls are pretty trash and the Bears have been trash for ages. So it gives this city a little bit of hope to get some sports teams over the line. So Chicago Bears, let's see what you can do.
It could be very boring if I just segued into the Packers right now and we could just completely reverse and hold hands.
Just highlighting two teams for a whole NFL season.
But I'm going to do something that's even more boring than that. And I'm going to give a biased take. I'm a Buffalo Bills fan. They lost a lot over the offseason. They lost their star wide receiver in Stephon Diggs. They had a lot of outings. They cleaned it all out, but they did add Keon Coleman, a star rookie wide receiver, and Curtis Samuel comes in from the Commanders. So they've also added to the defensive line. Curtis Samuels is a big kind of body, which is going to obviously help Josh Allen in the receiving game, just a bigger target for them as well. But Josh Allen, he's been an absolute star to date, and I'm ready to see him go to another level this year. He's got a young backfield, so I want to see if he can just take this or elevate to a whole new level. I mean, we all know about the run game and him, but they kind of tail it back a little bit to look after him. I think he's just going to go to a whole new level this year. And I think there's a lot of people sleeping on the Bills. It might be a very biased take because I am a Bills fan, but just because they lose Stephon Diggs, the confrontation that we saw out of them last season, it was looking so negative, and he wasn't even hitting him that often as well. I know he's a threat on a deep ball, but Coleman's going to be a threat as well out there too. So I do think Buffalo is somewhat of a sleeping giant because Josh Allen is a dog and they can play like dogs this year as well. So I want to see what the Bills are this year. They've got a good tight end room now as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how they balance it. I mean, you look at Patrick Mahomes each year, he's just got...
Can make it happen.
Exactly. He's got Travis Kelce out there, which he can dump it off. We saw today it was Patrick Marshall with the behind the back. I can't wait to see that. But there's no excuse in a way as well. And they've got a good ground and pound game. Is that going to be their sort of identity this year? I mean, we saw what the Ravens do with Lamar Jackson, the way that they scheme with teams. Obviously, Josh Allen isn't a Lamar Jackson in the way that he moves, but he's big and he's powerful.
I mean, a similar effectiveness in the running game, I'd say.
So for me, I'm excited to see what the Buffalo Bills do because I'm going to watch them anyway. I love them. They're my team. But when your back's up against the wall and there's so much noise saying, write the Bills off, they're done, who's the next team? I think they're going to be there.
And I completely agree with your takes, man, because it is almost like they've been written off with some of the other teams strengthening in their division and the Jets and the Miami Dolphins and kind of them being looked at as the team that's taken the step backwards and gone to maybe the third team in that division. But they've still been super good, man. And just because they lose Diggs, I completely agree. They're not going to just drop off a cliff because their defense is always pretty solid. And they do have that guy in Josh Allen who honestly is one of my favorite quarterbacks. Like the way he plays, the physicality he brings, he's kind of like a fullback, the way he runs the ball. His arm strength is ridiculous, probably the most powerful in the NFL. And then the thing with him is he just needs to maybe find a balance because he is a bit of a gunslinger. He is always very high in intercepts every year. If he can find the balance there, he has MVP potential written all over him. And with the weapons he does have weapons, but they're not like experienced weapons. They're kind of young. They're not marquee names like some of these other teams have. It's going to be an MVP caliber season that's going to make the Bills successful. And I really hope to see it from him because I really like Josh Allen. I think he's a great player.
I reckon they're probably going to start slow. And while they sort of figure things out, they might start like 1-3 or 2-5 or something on the year, but I think they'll start to build from there. And if they can start to find some momentum and keep that run going, I'm excited to see what they do because there's so much young talent coming through that it just starts to like topple at the top as well.
Well, you've got a lot more hope for your team than me. I'm a Raiders guy, so I don't think we're going to be doing anything this year.
Quick hot take before we move into this. There was a lot of Devontae Adams noise last year. They brought in a new head coach.
Speaking of Raiders.
Yeah, so that's what I want to bring up. My hot take for the year, I think the Jets are going to make an early trade and they're ready to go now. And I reckon they're going to reunite Devontae Adams with Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, I like it, man. That would add a bit of a wrinkle into that division and put the Jets maybe over the top as the favorites because, you know, there's a bit of question marks with Aaron Rodgers and whether he's still that same guy and whether he can take that team to the next level.
Yeah.
But with Devontae back, his most trusted weapon for like 5+ years.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's dangerous.
And it really is just Garrett Wilson out there for them as well.
Yeah.
So you add that with Breece Hall and Aaron Rodgers, and then the defense,
Nasty.
it'd be pretty scary. Now there's been a Super Bowl logo color theory for a little while now. So the 21-22 season, the Super Bowl logo was orange and yellow. That Super Bowl featured the Bengals and the Rams. The 22-23 season, the logo was red and green. That Super Bowl featured the Chiefs and the Eagles. Now, last year, the logo, it went out the window because it was red and it was purple. It was looking like it was going to be the Chiefs and the Ravens coming in there, but we ended up
49ers Ravens.
seeing... the Niners Ravens. But we ended up seeing the 49ers coming up against the Chiefs. Now, I want to know if this trend's going to go back on because Super Bowl 59 logo, I've got it here for you. It features a red and a lime green.
Yep.
So I've got two here for you. This is what I'm going to go for. I'm going to say the Miami Dolphins will take that lime sort of green and they will take on the San Francisco 49ers this year.
I like it. I did see that green and I was thinking, because obviously the red's there and you got the 49ers and the Chiefs that could come out of both sides. And I was thinking, who's going to take that green? Because
Everyone's saying Jets.
well, yeah, I was thinking it could be Jets as well, but I'm actually going to go different because I can't write these guys off, bro. Like, I still consider them the favorites. I've got to go the Chiefs for the red. They are just... Patrick Mahomes is just undeniably a great at this point. And then with his new weapons he's added, with just the consistency they bring on defense and with Kelsey in the frame and then Andy Reid coaching, I think they're going to get back there. I trust them a little more than, say, the Miami Dolphins. And then on the other side, there's a little bit more question marks with the 49ers, who I thought would take that red spot, with Brock Purdy going into a contract year and then Ayuk, obviously there's dramas going on there. So I've actually gone with, this is turning into a real cheesehead show, but I've actually gone with the Packers for that green. I think maybe they can take that leap. It's a bit of a reach, but maybe they can take that leap and take that green spot for the Super Bowl logo. So I'm going Chiefs first Packers.
Chiefs, Packers. I've locked in Niners up against the Dolphins. I was going to write in here, maybe with the global warming sort of rumors that we see all the time, and obviously Miami can't play in the cold. Maybe the globe's warm enough this year for them to go on a Super Bowl.
That's a good
run.
take.
What we're going to do is I'm going to finish with a blind ranking, some quarterbacks for you. I just want to know, did you have a hot take at all for the season? I've kind of put you on the spot a little bit.
Yeah, not really a hot take. I do think... Nah, I don't have one.
Your hot take is the Packers.
I'll come to you with a good one next week.
Okay. Now, to end the show, I've got 5 quarterbacks here, mate. You see it on a whole heap of podcasts and all of that kind of stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read them out to you, and I want you to just blind rank them in order. So we're going to start off with Joe Burrow.
Ooh, Joe Burrow. Blonde Burrow coming back. I'm going to chuck Burrow in at number 2 because I think he's a really quality quarterback when he's healthy.
Josh Allen.
Wow, that's made it hard already.
Yeah.
I'm going to chuck Josh Allen in at 3 because he has all the talent. He could be better than Burrow, but he's still a bit of a gunslinger.
Lamar Jackson.
Oh man, this is hard.
Yeah,
I thought it was going to be so...
I was gonna give you easy, but then I thought, I'm gonna put you on the spot here. I'm gonna give you some studs.
I have to chuck Lamar Jackson at 4.
Patrick Mahomes.
Okay, there we go. We can chuck him in at number 1. I was thinking of either putting him or Lamar there because I didn't know if you were going to include Patrick, but yeah, I'll chuck him at 1.
CJ Stroud.
CJ Stroud at 5. I like my list.
Yeah, I tried to scatter this a little bit. I knew you'd sort of maybe go hard on Joe Burrow early on. So your list at the moment, at 1, you got Patrick Mahomes. 2, you got Joe Burrow. 3, Josh Allen. 4, Lamar Jackson, and 5, CJ Stroud.
Damn, I like it.
Yeah.
I think that's fairly accurate. Do you agree?
Yeah, I like it, man. I was going to throw you some wash picks in there. I was going to throw you maybe like a Baker Mayfield or something. And then I thought I might get you early on with like a Jordan Love kind of sweeting you up a little
number
bit.
1.
Yeah. But yeah, nonetheless, that concludes another show. We're going to... we just want to sneak some NFL content in there just to get you sort of all excited about it, you football heads, before we move on into it. But we're going to bring you a little bit of stuff throughout the season. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll see you guys all next week.